But there's a question that echoes in your mind. Why do some people set goals and achieve greatness while others keep struggling in circles? Is it luck? Is it talent? Or is there something else going on? Something hidden, something scientific that even scientists were shocked to discover? Today, I'm not just going to talk about setting goals. I'm going to take you on a journey through facts, through science, through real-world strategies, and through truth that may very well change how you think, how you act, and how you live. Because what you'll hear in the next few minutes is not motivation for the moment, it's transformation for a lifetime. So stay with me till the end, because once you understand what I'm about to share, you'll realize success is not something out there, it's something already inside you, just waiting to be unlocked. The brain's reticular activating system, RAS, is one of the most fascinating and powerful neurological functions that governs human perception, focus, and goal achievement. Although not widely known outside of neuroscience or psychology circles, this system plays a pivotal role in how people navigate their environment, process information, and ultimately realize the goals they set. When scientists studied goal setting and its effects on human behavior and success, one of the most shocking revelations was the influence of this seemingly small yet crucial part of the brain on the outcomes we achieve in life. The reticular activating system is located in the brainstem, connecting the spinal cord to the brain. It is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information so the important stuff gets through. In layman's terms, it acts like a gatekeeper between the conscious mind and the subconscious. At any given moment, your brain is bombarded with millions of pieces of information, sounds, visuals, smells, thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and more. Processing all of this consciously would be impossible. That's where the RAS comes in. It filters what is essential and directs your attention toward it. It decides what data is important for you to notice based on what your mind is focused on or what your brain has been told is significant. When a person sets a goal, especially when that goal is clear and well defined, the RAS goes into action. By identifying that particular goal as important, your brain's filtering system begins to shift. Suddenly, the world around you appears to change, not because it actually changes, but because your brain is now more attuned to certain things. It starts picking up on opportunities, people, resources, and clues that relate to your goal. This is not magic or pseudoscience. It's pure neuroscience at work. What was once filtered out by the RAS as irrelevant is now allowed to come through because the brain has received a signal that this information might help in the attainment of your goal. Consider an example that many people have experienced. Imagine you decide to buy a specific model of a car, let's say a red Toyota Camry. You probably didn't notice this car very often before. But once you made the decision and the goal to buy it, suddenly you start seeing red Toyota Camrys everywhere. On the street, in parking lots, on highways. Did they all just appear out of nowhere? Of course not. They were always there, but your brain didn't consider them important enough to notice until your goal activated your RAS. This is the same mechanism that applies when you set a personal or professional goal. Once your brain has been told, this is important, it changes your perception, focus, and alertness to match that priority. This mechanism works on both a conscious and subconscious level. The more emotionally involved you are with your goal, the more it matters to you, the more powerfully your RAS will operate in support of that goal. This is why motivational experts often emphasize the importance of emotional connection, visualization, and repetition when setting goals. By visualizing your goal repeatedly and emotionally engaging with it, you send a strong signal to your brain that this is important, which strengthens your RS filtering system toward that target. The more emotionally vivid the goal, the more the brain will prioritize it. What's also remarkable is that the RAS doesn't differentiate between reality and imagination. This means that if you vividly imagine a scenario, your brain responds to it almost as if it were real. So if you constantly visualize failure, your brain begins to filter your experiences to align with that expectation. It will tune into things that confirm your fears and overlook opportunities for success. On the other hand, if you visualize progress, achievement, and confidence, your brain will look for supportive evidence in your environment. This is why many athletes, CEOs, and high performers engage in visualization techniques. They are literally training their eyes to filter the world in a way that supports their desired outcome. Now, from a scientific standpoint, studies have shown how goal setting and focus directly impact brain function. For example, research in cognitive psychology shows that when people have a clearly defined task or objective, their ability to detect related stimuli improves dramatically. This is often tested in laboratory conditions where subjects who are primed to look for certain words or symbols can identify them faster and more accurately than unprimed subjects. What's happening in these cases is the activation of selective attention, a function driven largely by the RAS. In a workplace or academic setting, this can have profound implications. A student who sets a clear goal like I want to graduate with a 3.8 GPA and get into medical school will, knowingly or unknowingly, start filtering their study materials, peers, online content, and time usage toward activities and information that align with that objective. Their eyes will push their attention toward beneficial habits and block out time-wasting distractions. Conversely, a student with no clear goal is at the mercy of randomness. Their RAS doesn't have a clear instruction and therefore allows all sorts of information through, regardless of its relevance to future success. Another shocking aspect of the RAS is how it can be trained or reprogrammed through repetition and belief. Scientists have shown that affirmations, written goals, and consistent exposure to goal content can condition the RAS. If a person wakes up daily and writes, I will become a successful software engineer and build innovative apps, and they truly believe it, their RAS will begin prioritizing information, opportunities, and networks that relate to that identity. This is why writing your goals daily is not just a motivational gimmick. It's a way of conditioning the RAS to filter your environment in your favor. Some neuroscientists have even linked the RAS to the power of faith and prayer. When a person repeatedly focuses on a future outcome with belief and conviction, the brain's filters start adjusting to bring that reality closer. Even though science cannot measure the spiritual realm, it acknowledges the psychological and physiological effects of deep belief and repeated focus. This makes the RAS not only a neurological mechanism, but also a spiritual bridge in some interpretations, linking intention with reality through focus and action. Furthermore, the RAS also affects confidence and self-identity. If someone constantly tells themselves, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart, or I'm unlucky, the RAS will support that belief by filtering in events that reinforce failure and filtering out opportunities that could lead to growth. This creates a self-fulfilling cycle of limitation. But when a person shifts their internal dialogue, when they start saying, I am capable, I will find a way, I deserve success, the RAS begins to support this new identity. It literally changes what you notice in the world. This is one of the most empowering truths in cognitive neuroscience, that human beings have the ability to shape their reality by shaping what they focus on. The RAS is like the spotlight operator in a dark theater. The entire stage is present, but only what the spotlight focuses on is seen. Similarly, your brain has access to infinite information, but only what your RAS highlights enters your awareness. And what you're aware of is what you act on. What you act on becomes your habits, and your habits, repeated daily, become your life. In summary, the brain's reticular activating system is not just a passive filter. It's an active participant in goal achievement. It listens to what you focus on, believe, and visualize. It listens to what you repeat to yourself. It listens to your thoughts and emotional intensity. And based on those inputs, it changes the way you perceive and interact with the world. This is why successful people, knowingly or unknowingly, are masters at giving their RAS the right instruction. They set clear, compelling goals, they focus on them daily, and they move toward them with intention. Whether it's a student aiming for top grades, an entrepreneur launching a startup, or an athlete training for a championship, the science behind their success often begins with one simple yet profound action: giving the RAS a goal to serve. The second keynote revolves around a widely circulated concept known as the Harvard Goal Study, which has become a foundational reference point in discussions on the power of setting goals. While the precise historical accuracy of the study is sometimes debated, the lessons it teaches remain powerful and have been echoed in various psychological research studies. The essential idea presented by this so-called study is that individuals who write down their goals are significantly more likely to achieve them compared to those who don't. The story, often cited in motivational literature and success seminars, suggests that in a graduating Harvard class, only a small percentage of students had written goals, and those few individuals ended up earning far more and achieving far more than the rest combined. While the data behind the original claim has come under scrutiny, the core principle that goal clarity and commitment dramatically influence success is backed by a wealth of research in behavioral psychology, cognitive science, and personal development. The narrative typically begins with a survey conducted among Harvard Business School students, where students were asked whether they had clear, written goals for their future and if they had plans to accomplish them. According to the anecdotal account, 84% of students had no specific goals, 13% had goals but not written down, and only 3% had written goals with clear plans. When the class was followed up a decade later, the results were staggering. The 13% who had goals, though not written, were earning twice as much as the 84% who had none. Even more astonishing, the 3% who had written down their goals were said to be earning 10 times as much as the other 97% combined. While scholars have pointed out that this particular study may never have actually taken place at Harvard, the story persists because it conveys a truth that has been validated in other scientifically rigorous studies. Writing down your goals and having a plan significantly increases the likelihood of achieving them. The idea is rooted in the cognitive science of intention and attention. When a person articulates a goal clearly and writes it down, they move it from a vague thought into a concrete objective. The very act of writing down a goal engages multiple parts of the brain: language centers, motor functions, and memory consolidation processes. This neurological engagement creates a more embedded cognitive and emotional connection to the goal, which increases personal commitment and internal motivation. Writing forces clarity. When a goal is only floating in the mind, it tends to remain abstract, inconsistent, and emotionally disconnected. But when it is written on paper, it becomes specific, tangible, and something the brain treats as real and important. This process of articulation begins a psychological chain reaction. It activates both the reticular activating system, which filters information relevant to the goal, and the brain's reward system, which begins seeking the dopamine that comes from making progress towards something meaningful. Beyond just the act of writing, the planning component, where one outlines specific steps to achieve the goal, adds another layer of effectiveness. Research from the field of behavioral psychology indicates that having a specific plan, or what's called an implementation intention, drastically increases follow-through. An implementation intention is a simple but powerful concept. When a person commits to performing a behavior at a specific time and place in the future, I will study for my entrance exam at 6 p.m. every weekday in my study room, the likelihood of completing that action increases significantly. The reason this works is that it reduces the cognitive load associated with decision making. Instead of waking up and trying to decide each day whether or not to act on your goal, the decision has already been made in advance, allowing for automatic execution and stronger adherence to the habit. Additional studies have been conducted to test the connection between goal setting, writing, and achievement. One of the most referenced pieces of modern research comes from a Dominican University study led by Dr. Gail Matthews, a psychology professor. In a study, 267 participants from a variety of professions and backgrounds were divided into several groups based on how they approached their goals. Some participants were instructed to merely think about their goals, others to write them down, some to write and share them with a friend, and others to also provide weekly progress updates. The results were clear and consistent. Those who wrote down their goals were significantly more likely to achieve them than those who did not. Furthermore, participants who also made commitments to friends and sent weekly updates had the highest success rates of all. This layered structure of goal setting, where goals are not only written but also shared and reviewed, adds psychological accountability. When a person tells someone else about their goals, they create a form of social pressure and external motivation. This doesn't only drive consistency, it also builds confidence and reinforces the sense of identity associated with being a person who follows through. In this way, goal setting isn't just about success in terms of external results. It becomes an internal transformation, influencing how individuals see themselves and how they behave over time. There is also an important distinction between vague goals and specific measurable goals. The former might sound like, I want to be successful or I want to get in shape. These types of goals lack clarity, benchmarks, and deadlines, which makes it difficult for the brain to engage meaningfully with them. In contrast, specific goals like, I want to lose 15 pounds in the next 3 months by going to the gym 4 times a week and eating 1800 calories per day, give the brain a roadmap. It understands the what, how, and when. Specificity is crucial because it transforms the goal from a wish into a plan. The clearer the target, the better the brain can focus on it and rally the emotional and cognitive resources needed to achieve it. The emotional investment that comes from writing down goals also cannot be overstated. Goals that are emotionally compelling, ones that connect to a person's sense of purpose, values, or deeper desires, are far more likely to be pursued with intensity and resilience. When people write goals that matter to them on a personal level, they are tapping into what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. This type of motivation is more sustainable than external motivators like money or recognition. Intrinsic motivation connects effort to identity and meaning. It drives people to persist through challenges, learn from setbacks, and continually adjust their approach rather than give up. Writing goals helps solidify this emotional connection and turn abstract ambitions into real-life commitments. Neurologically, when a goal is committed to in writing, the brain's frontal lobes, responsible for decision-making, planning, and strategic thinking, are activated. These regions are involved in high-order thinking and are essential for evaluating trade-offs, managing impulses, and organizing tasks. When the frontal lobe is actively engaged in planning for a goal, it becomes easier for a person to align their daily actions with long-term intentions. This means that writing a goal doesn't just serve as a reminder. It transforms the brain's operating system by engaging the circuits necessary for rational planning and emotional control. Another concept linked to goal setting is the psychological principle of cognitive dissonance. When a person commits in writing to a goal but then fails to act in accordance with it, they experience discomfort. The human brain does not like inconsistency between one's actions and self-image. If you write down a goal saying you will start your business in 6 months and you don't take any steps toward it, a gap is created between who you claim to be and what you're doing. This discomfort can either cause anxiety or fuel behavioral change. People who truly commit to written goals are often pushed by this dissonance to take action so they can realign their behavior with their stated identity. Additionally, goal setting has time implications. The best goals are not only written but also time-bound. The inclusion of a deadline adds urgency and focus. It forces prioritization and helps avoid the trap of procrastination, When people write goals with a defined time frame, they are better able to schedule tasks, break larger goals into smaller steps, and measure their progress. Time-bound goals also improve motivation by making the path forward feel more structured. Without a time frame, goals can drift into the background of one's life and be forgotten. In behavioral economics, researchers have found that people are more likely to act when there is a clear, immediate reward or consequence. This is why writing goals and tracking them over time is so effective. It creates a sense of feedback. When progress is visible, when someone sees themselves moving closer to the goal, it creates a positive feedback loop that reinforces continued effort. This is supported by the brain's reward system, particularly the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter linked to motivation and satisfaction. Writing goals allows people to recognize and celebrate small wins, which fuels the drive to keep going. Ultimately, while the exact details of the Harvard Goal study may be debated, its message holds true in both practical life and scientific research. People who write down their goals and develop concrete plans are more likely to achieve success. The act of writing a goal transforms it from a passing thought to a structured objective. It engages the brain's logical and emotional systems. It increases awareness, accountability, and alignment. It sets the stage for action. And in doing so, it separates those who drift through life from those who design their future with purpose. The third keynote centers on the extraordinary link between neuroscience and success, particularly how neuroplasticity enables the brain to rewire itself for goal achievement. Neuroplasticity is a scientific term that refers to the brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. What this means in simpler terms is that your brain is not fixed or static. It changes based on what you think, feel, experience, and repeatedly do. For decades, scientists believed the brain stopped developing after childhood. However, groundbreaking research has proven that the brain remains adaptable, capable of growth and change well into adulthood and even old age. This discovery shocked the scientific community and revolutionized our understanding of human potential. In the context of setting and achieving goals, it means that no matter where a person starts, no matter how many setbacks they've experienced, their brain can be trained to think, behave, and function differently, more effectively, and more successfully. The human brain is made up of billions of neurons or nerve cells that communicate with each other through synapses, tiny junctions where messages are passed through electrical and chemical signals. These connections form networks, and the more often certain thoughts or behaviors are repeated, the stronger those networks become. This is the basis of the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together, which explains how habits are formed and why repetition is so critical. When a person consistently thinks positively, practices discipline, focuses on a vision, or acts in alignment with a goal, the brain begins to reinforce those neural pathways, making those thoughts and behaviors easier to perform over time. Essentially, you are training your brain to default to successful habits. Conversely, if someone constantly engages in negative thinking, procrastination, or self-doubt, those pathways become stronger, making those mental patterns harder to break. This is why people can feel stuck or trapped in cycles of failure. They've unknowingly trained their brains to function in that way. But the empowering truth revealed by neuroplasticity is that these patterns are not permanent. With consistent effort, intention, and strategy, anyone can break those old neural pathways and create new ones. The brain is always listening, always learning, and always adapting. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every decision you make is shaping the architecture of your mind. When it comes to goal setting, the power of neuroplasticity becomes a key factor in success. The more often you visualize your goals, think about your goals, and act in pursuit of them, the more your brain becomes wired to help you succeed. This is not just motivational theory, it's biological science. When a person vividly imagines a desired outcome, the brain activates many of the same areas that it would if the action were actually taking place. This means that mental rehearsal has a similar effect on the brain as physical practice. Athletes, musicians, and high performers across fields use visualization to prepare their minds and bodies for success. By doing so, they create and strengthen neural circuits that support peak performance, even before any physical action is taken. This concept extends to mindset as well. A person with a growth mindset, someone who believes they can improve through effort and learning, uses neuroplasticity to their advantage. They embrace challenges, persist through difficulties, and learn from failure, all of which contribute to brain growth. Studies have shown that students and professionals who adopt a growth mindset not only perform better, but also enjoy the process more. Their brains become more adaptive, more resilient, and more capable of handling complexity. This internal belief system becomes a filter through which they experience the world, reinforcing behaviors that lead to long-term success. The chemical side of neuroplasticity also plays a critical role. When people pursue goals and achieve small wins, the brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure, reward, and motivation. Dopamine not only makes you feel good, it also helps reinforce the behavior that caused its release. This creates a positive feedback loop where effort leads to reward, which leads to more effort. The more consistent this cycle becomes, the more your brain craves that feeling of achievement and begins to seek out opportunities for progress. Scientists have found that people with stronger dopamine responses are more likely to stick with difficult tasks, maintain focus, and display persistence, traits that are essential for success in any field. But neuroplasticity doesn't happen automatically. It is driven by repetition and intensity. The more emotionally charged a thought or experience, the more likely it is to create lasting changes in the brain. That's why emotionally connecting with your goals is vital. If your goals are merely intellectual or theoretical, the brain may not prioritize them. But when they are linked to strong emotions, hope, purpose, urgency, excitement, they are encoded more deeply in your neural architecture. This is also why trauma can have such a lasting impact. Negative emotions can create powerful neural imprints. But just as negative emotions can shape the brain, so can positive ones. By repeatedly associating positive emotions with your goals, you are training your brain to see the pursuit of those goals as valuable and fulfilling. Neuroplasticity also explains how habits are formed and broken. Habits are essentially shortcuts the brain creates to conserve energy. Once a behavior is repeated often enough, the brain begins to automate it, transferring control from the conscious mind to the subconscious. This is incredibly useful for efficiency, but also dangerous when the habits are counterproductive. Changing a habit requires not just breaking the old neural loop, but replacing it with a new one. This process involves both cognitive effort and emotional reinforcement. For example, someone who wants to stop procrastinating must identify the trigger, interrupt the routine, and replace it with a more beneficial behavior, like starting with a small task or using a timer to stay focused. Over time, with repetition, the brain rewires itself to adopt the new behavior as the default. One of the most exciting areas of research in neuroplasticity involves mindfulness and meditation. These practices have been shown to literally change the structure of the brain, increasing the size of the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, decision-making, and impulse control, and decreasing the size of the amygdala, associated with fear and stress. People who practice mindfulness regularly show greater emotional regulation, better focus, and enhanced cognitive flexibility. These traits are invaluable when pursuing challenging goals. When setbacks occur, as they inevitably do, a mind trained in mindfulness is better equipped to respond calmly, learn from the experience, and adapt without falling into discouragement or despair. Another fascinating aspect of neuroplasticity is that it operates across different domains of life. If a person learns discipline in one area, say waking up early to exercise, that discipline can transfer to other areas like studying more consistently or managing finances better. This is because the neural circuits for self-regulation, focus, and perseverance are being strengthened and can be applied broadly. Success in one domain builds confidence and competence that spills over into other goals. The brain becomes better at handling complexity, resisting temptation, and maintaining long-term vision over short-term gratification. This interconnectivity is one reason why developing routines and rituals is so powerful. Morning routines, for example, set the tone for the day and create a stable foundation from which productivity can emerge. By performing the same positive actions each morning, journaling, exercising, planning, meditating, you are reinforcing beneficial neural pathways and reducing decision fatigue. Your brain doesn't have to work as hard to choose the right behaviors because they become automatic. Over time, this builds momentum and accelerates progress toward your goals. What shocks many people is how quickly these changes can begin to happen. Brain scans have shown that even a few weeks of consistent mental training can produce noticeable changes in brain structure and function. This means that anyone, regardless of background, age, or experience, can begin rewiring their brain for success starting today. It's not reserved for the gifted or the privileged. The ability to change is built into every human brain. The only requirement is commitment and repetition. As you continue to set goals, act on them, reflect and adapt, your brain evolves with you, making each step more intuitive and aligned with your desired future. Neuroplasticity also plays a role in resilience. Life is unpredictable and goals often come with obstacles. People who understand and embrace the brain's adaptability are more likely to see challenges as opportunities to grow. They don't see failure as a permanent condition but as feedback. This mindset transforms the way they respond to setbacks. Instead of giving up, they adapt. Instead of blaming others or circumstances, they take responsibility and look for what they can control. This psychological flexibility is supported by the brain's physical flexibility, proving once again that success is not just about what you know or who you are, but how you train your brain to think and act. The most inspiring part of neuroplasticity is that it puts the power back into your hands. You're not stuck with the mind you have today. You're not limited by your past habits or current beliefs. You can literally build a new brain one decision at a time. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, vision over doubt, action over hesitation, you are changing your brain's wiring. This is not theory, it's proven by all. The brain is like a muscle, and goal setting is one of the most effective ways to train it. When you understand how neuroplasticity works, you realize that your goals are not just dreams or wishes. They are blueprints for rewiring your brain. Each repetition, each step forward, each lesson learned is shaping you into the person capable of living the life you desire.